Hello, everyone. Jose J. Garcia with Garcia Home University here. Guest for today, he is a real estate investor. We'll be talking about that. Of course, he's a public speaker, real estate coach. Definitely be talking about that, and all-around serial entrepreneur. Jonathan Wright, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, Jose. Yourself?
Every day feels like Monday. It's a great thing, though.
Gotta love Mondays.
Yes, sir, all year round. So, Jonathan, I know you, of course, are the same coaching platforms. We follow a lot of the same coaching, speaking, and that sort of thing. But for people that don't know you, tell us about you.
Well, I started my career progression in the military. I was in the military 15 years, and once I retired, I needed a new plan. I needed to do something different. Couldn't continue working for the government. I couldn't continue working for an organization that wasn't organized, wasn't optimized. There were so many inefficiencies that were driving me crazy. And the opportunity to start my own business came to mind, but I didn't know exactly where to get started. And then the opportunity for real estate came up, and I said, well, you know what? Let's look into it. So my wife and I decided to start attending some symposiums, some conferences, and eventually got some real estate training and realized we can actually build a fully functioning business based out of real estate. So that is how it all got started. And the moment that I got the training, I started building my teams, I started putting offers out. And the key, the absolute key to success really is you need to be really persistent, really motivated right out the gate. So the second you have, enough of the answers for you to be able to work something, you don't need all the answers, but enough to be able to work with, you need to get out there, start sprinting. And that's when the opportunities will start coming to you. And that's exactly what happened to me.
That's well said. Already a question there for you. So you took symposiums training and then you went after what you were taught. Many people ask me if you could go back and do it again, what would you do different? And that's exactly what I told them. Take some training. Some. You're not going to learn everything. You can forget that. Trying to perfect something that's crazy. But I had no training, no learning. I kind of just had a thought, went after it, and I did good. But it wasn't until I started educating myself to realize, oh, how many things you had done wrong that you could have avoided. You're going to learn no matter what. So that's definitely, do you think that is a must for people to really truly succeed is take education first, then go after the investment?
No, absolutely. Especially when it comes to real estate. Real estate is a very safe and effective way to build wealth over long term. The problem is if you don't have the fundamentals fully understood, you can lose your shirt very, very quickly in real estate as well. So I've seen a lot of flips go badly because people were simply not educated. So how do they evaluate deals? How do they evaluate properties? How do they evaluate the market? How do they evaluate the team that they're hiring? There's so many different factors you need to consider. And until you educate yourself and get a fundamental understanding of what it is you're doing, you're putting yourself at much greater risk. So the education is a way of mitigating that risk of losing money right off the get-go, because you don't want to start losing money in the first few deals, because that is really just going to kill your motivation. So you need to get the right answers right off the bat, so that way you can start small, start slow, if that's your comfort level, but you want to start with the correct information, so that way you're most likely to succeed on day one. Because if you're successful early on, it's a lot more of a motivation to continue on and continue to build from that.
Absolutely. And you mentioned comfort zone in there as well. So we would be lying to everybody if we said you're not going to make mistakes. We would be going right back to telling somebody you can learn how to ride a bicycle and you're not going to fall. It's going to happen. That's just the way it is. But the better prepared you are, the better chances you have of succeeding without as less falls, of course. Comfort zone is something definitely huge and a lot of people struggle with. I early on struggle with. And again, we can't learn everything behind a book, behind a computer. You got to get out there and start doing it. But breaking out of the comfort zone, a lot of people struggle with that. What is the easiest way for you to break out of your comfort zone?
Well, for me to break out of the comfort zone, I'm a very left brain analytical person. I mean, people who know me know that right off the bat. Now, for me, interacting with people was obviously the challenging part, because once you get into real estate, you realize very quickly that real estate is really a people's game.
Mhm.
It's not about property, it's about people. So for me, it's trying to make those connections with people, whether it be working with teams, working with potential sellers, potential buyers. That is where the challenge was for me, because I'm a very logical thinker. But when you're dealing with a lot of people, in distress situations, logic goes right out the window. So it's all about emotional, it's about making that emotional connection. So for me, I had to get outside of my comfort zone in order to do that. So how do I do that? Well, first off, you want to try and role play with someone that you're already comfortable with. So someone who understands what you're trying to get into, and they kind of go practice back and forth, and go through a number of different scenarios so you can get an idea of, how to start building. But at the end of the day, you actually need to go out there and start doing it. So the only way you can expand your comfort zone is to actually go beyond it, in strategic areas, so that you can slowly start to build it over time. So you need to identify what that item is that's really holding you back, and you need to push yourself in that direction to really expand that comfort zone.
Absolutely. You wear so many hats. We were talking about this before we went on recording here. You do many things investing. You invest in all kinds of companies now. You've definitely come a long way. But one thing that I think I want to say everybody, especially entrepreneurs, struggle with is time. Time. How do you have enough time? No such thing. I think so now. Anyway, I'm sure I'll probably get better over time. But how do you typically structure your day?
Well, the first thing you need to consider is it doesn't matter how successful you are, how wealthy you are. Every one of us has 24 hours in a day, and every one of us needs to eat. Every one of us needs to sleep, and those are absolute essentials. So you need to consider that fact. So with the limited amount of time you have left, if you need to do more, ultimately need to be more effective, more efficient. So I take that approach when I examine my day. So typically I'll get up, early in the day, so 5:30 in the morning, for example, and I'll get started on items to really get my entire day moving. So that's not communicating directly with people, starting conversations, because that ends up always taking up more time than I would like. So I begin to structure my day technically before my day actually begins. So that way, when 7 a.m., 8 a.m. rolls around, everything's already in place. All my pieces on the chessboard are set, and I'm ready to start playing the game that day. So you need to start early. You need to set yourself up every morning for the rest of the day. Now, during the day, you want to structure your time slot based on what you have on your plate. So when you're first starting off, you may want to schedule things in hour blocks or half-hour blocks, and you want to stick to those blocks. But as you become more successful, as you become to take on, more and more things on your plate, you really need to narrow down those time slots down to 15 minutes, or 10 minutes in some cases. So if I'm having a meeting with someone, I already know exactly what the point of the meeting is. We have our quick pleasantries, quick introductions, get right to the point, and then I move on to the next meeting, because I respect their time. I respect other entrepreneurs and their schedules, and they're trying to meet commitments to their clients and to their partners. So for me to drag on a conversation endlessly, I'm actually disrespecting them. So it's all about the mutual respect of time. And ultimately, once you start getting into that mentality, then it's going to make it a lot easier for you to respect your own time as well as the time of others.
That's very well put. You don't have a thing when I coach my students, it's about being on the phone. And I probably need to word it the way you just did, because it's not a rushing thing, but it's if you're not rushing anybody on and off the phone. But if you're on that phone trying to make a deal that may or may not even be a deal, and you're on it more than 5 minutes, you're wasting each other's time. That's usually how I put it. But it would be more be, respectful to each other. Just get the information, get to the point. This ain't a chit chat kind of conversation. Y'all want to hang out? Do it later on, get to the point kind of thing on this. So that's good on that one, Jonathan. And the
Absolutely, yeah,
same
because it's not about exactly. So it's not about rushing the call. It's
Mhm.
about getting to hitting those key elements as quickly as possible. There's a
Effectively.
difference, because if you're trying to rush someone off the call, you're really just skipping to the end. It's not about skipping to the end. It's about hitting all those bullet points as efficiently, as effectively as possible.
And back to timing and structuring your day. I mean, you do the same thing with goals, visions, and ideas. One thing we learned from J2 course is implementing. I do pretty well on that, but I definitely understand the importance of writing things down. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, writing things down is essential. Like every single meeting, I have this notebook that's sits next to me all the time, and I'm constantly taking notes, whether it's during interviews, whether it's during phone calls, whether it's during, even when I'm browsing articles, and I'll know some key points, I'll jot some stuff down, because there's so much going on in a day that by the time you get to 5 o'clock, especially when you've been up at 5 o'clock, you're 12 hours into your day, your mind can get a little fuzzy, and you may start forgetting some of the key details. And when you forget those details, it's really missed opportunity. And you don't want to have too many missed opportunities day by day. So having good note taking is important. And at the end of the day, you review your notes. You make sure that you act on any key, action items at the end of the day, just to get them out of the way, or set yourself up the next morning to start working on those before your day begins. So note taking is what helps you structure your day. And it's really just the tool that you use, because especially as you start to take on more and more, it can be very intimidating, especially to someone who's not used to it, to all of a sudden have trying to juggle all of these things. But when you have it written down and organized, whether you use pen and paper, I'm a little old school that way. Some people use a more electronic format. It's really up to you. But however you organize it, it can help give you that peace of mind. It's basically a way to comfort yourself and go, okay, I have a lot on my plate, but I'm very organized. And as you're progressing through your day or through your week and you start knocking things off that list, you start to see that your plate starts to become less and less full. And now you start to get a bit more confidence that you can manage what you're basically taking on. So again, to me, it's a natural key element to any business.
Absolutely. And I feel like we're so alike as entrepreneurs. Same thing. Everywhere we go, we carry a pad and we're always jotting notes that because I may even look across the street and think, oh, that's a good idea for something. And I go write it down. I'm notorious for forgetting things. So a pad is definitely a must. Vision goes right down. And the same way with you. I like writing things down. I like reading books. If you hand me a pad here, read off of this, I don't want to read that. Give me a book. So, that just makes me feel good on that. But Jonathan, I'm a mobile home investor, coach, and mentor. I invest in manufactured housing, the hidden side to real estate, as I call. What are your thoughts, or what is your knowledge in mobile homes? Have you ever invested in them?
I've never invested in mobile homes, but I'm fairly knowledgeable about them. When I took my training, I actually took the time to read through the legislation, how the different laws apply to different types of real estate. Land leases obviously work a little different than typical real estate transactions in most markets, and the same thing in my market. So I definitely paid attention to the whole spectrum of it. And to me, when I looked at it, there were a lot of people that were operating in like the home flips, doing like luxury homes or premium homes. That was very common. But for me, I found that when I got into real estate, that middle area is where there was the biggest vacancy in terms of quality investors and producing quality products. So that's why I jumped in there. But I did look at the entire spectrum, absolutely. And in my area where I live, it wasn't as effective to get into mobile homes, but it's definitely something that is a very workable model. And it's particularly now during COVID and how the real estate market has changed, mobile homes are going to start becoming more and more popular simply because the cost of housing has gone up so much. And, especially with millennials now no longer able to afford a home as they thought they would, either moving back in with parents or having to purchase something at a lower cost. Now, all of a sudden, this business model is very attractive from an investment point of view.
Absolutely. No, definitely. Mobile homes are affordable, affordability to live in, and the inflation. You're not kidding. It is definitely up there. It's going, except for material, everything. I mean, just it is shocking how it's raising really quickly. So, okay. Um, what would you say the market is where you're currently at for real estate? Would it be ideal for somebody to get into investing at this time, or are you seeing more on the verge of hold off?
Well, the funny thing about real estate is it's always a good time to invest.
Mhm.
It's just a matter of what strategy you use when you invest, depending on where the market sits. So right now we're seeing prices sky high. And if you're going in and paying top dollar for properties, that's probably not a good idea. So the strategies that you use really just change depending on the market conditions. So absolutely. Now in my market, my city, Halifax, where I live in right now, is the fastest growing market in Canada. So a lot of people within Canada are coming out east. A lot of immigration is coming into the city, and the city grew 4% in a single year, and we didn't have the housing capacity to actually deal with all the people coming in, and that's been a bit of a crisis right now, which has helped the rental market because we got near zero vacancy. If you're looking to rent properties, this is the prime time to do it because finding tenants is not a problem.
Yeah.
So, yeah, and we're seeing that in a lot of different markets in Canada right now, and the States is very much the same in many markets. But is it a good time to invest? Absolutely. There's no question. It's just a matter of what strategies you use, and that really comes down to the education you get at the beginning
Mhm.
to see what different tools you have in your toolbox. And as the market changes, you just use a different combination of tools.
Absolutely. What is one of the best deals you've done and the worst?
Best deal. Wow. There have been so many good deals.
That's a great thing.
It's really hard. It's really hard to compare them. I mean, if you're looking purely on a dollar value, I think it would have been a mid-sized multi-unit building that I ended up buying and then flipping. So that generated about 550,000 profit. And would it be the best deal? I mean, it was early on in my real estate investment. It was a bloody nightmare to manage, a bloody nightmare to, structure and everything else. It was a lot of work, a lot of person hours to put together, but the profit margin was great. Whereas I've had deals where I've made, 40, 50% returns, and I've spent literally less than an hour on the deal. So if you're looking at, the time versus return, then some of the smaller projects would probably be better. If you're looking for a dollar value, then some of the larger ones would be better. So it depends on how you evaluate versus worse. Um, my worst deal was not specifically a deal, but it was more how I structured a particular partnership where it was early on. I didn't evaluate the partners effectively enough. And as a result, we ended up acquiring properties that were over leveraged based on how they borrowed the money. And we struggled. It's been an absolute nightmare to sort of manage and take care of the deal. We're still making money, but it's not as fruitful as it could have. So that was a hard lesson learned. But I mean, again, we all go through growing pains. So did we lose money? No, I've never lost money in a deal, but it was a lot of fighting, a lot of struggle just to maintain that profit margin.
A lot of education came from that.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, it's what you learn from it, because you can always take something from it. And even if you do lose money, in a sense, I'm glad you didn't. But it's like, what did you learn? Because you're going to do it again and you're not going to make the same mistake. So it's that picking up. And this is the reason for the videos we make here, is we try to motivate upcoming entrepreneurs or already entrepreneurs who are feeling a little stuck, a little on the edge, that sort of thing. So we're always trying to, because every entrepreneur, every investor goes through struggles. Again, you cannot avoid them. So, no deal is the same, no investment is the same, and hard times will come from time to time. You just got to keep on going. That's the only thing you can do. Talking about business and investments, entrepreneurship, what do you think is one of the biggest mistakes new entrepreneurs make getting into business?
Well, we've touched about the education aspect,
Definitely.
but the biggest mistake I would say they make is they don't get a coach. Plain and simple. Because I've seen so many people start businesses, and yes, they get the education, but when you have knowledge, you need to understand and appreciate how to apply that knowledge. And that's not always very clear, because you can read a book, a textbook on, science or business or anything, and you'll have that knowledge, but how do you get out there and apply it is a whole other ballgame. So when you have a coach and someone who's actually been through what you're going through now and can provide you that guidance in that direction, that solves that problem. So investing in a coach, not one that gives you like, free coaching or something like that. Free is not valuable. Someone that you pay, someone who's invested in you,
Mhm.
will be the best asset you can have going out, because you've got the knowledge, you've got the direction. Now you understand exactly how you can apply that knowledge, and then that allows you to run out the gate instead of crawling out the gate. So that is really the biggest mistake people make.
And holding you accountable. You need somebody to hold you accountable. Most people don't care for that. Well, that's what works. So good jobs, kind of quit working. Never did really work. So absolutely. Jonathan, a couple more questions here for you. You've done so much here, succeeding. I know you have a lot more things coming up. What is next for you?
Next for me is just the next deal. That's really what it's about. I've got a property closing in 2 days. I've got two more closing next week. So I mean, it's all about the deal flow. It's all about managing the partners, managing the expectations of the partners, scaling the business, and it's all about what the new opportunity is around the corner. That's what's exciting about real estate, because it's not, every deal is unique, every
Mhm.
transaction is unique, every partnership is unique. So it's as much as it is a repeated game, it's a repeated game. It's like playing a game of chess, but every single piece is different,
Mhm.
and every transaction is different, and every partnership is different. So for me, the excitement about what's next is, what is the next deal? How am I going to structure it? Because every deal gets structured differently. So, like for example, I'm working on a fairly major project right now that we have to structure it in a very creative way, and that was exciting. So it's all about the excitement of how you grow as an investor by continuing to practice what you've already done, also expanding your knowledge base, expanding your skill set, to start doing more and more creative things. So within real estate, that is what's next. And of course, diversifying into other companies and so on, but that's a whole other conversation in of itself.
Well said. Absolutely. And finally, any last words of advice for people trying to get into it and or listening in, tuning into the video here?
Well, getting into a new endeavor, whether you're starting a new job, starting a new relationship, it's really all the same. It can be very scary, very intimidating. So you need to surround yourself with the right people before you get started. And it's not only about the team of people, whether it's the realtors, the lawyers, the accountants, so on and so forth, but it's fellow entrepreneurs, fellow real estate investors. Surround yourself with the right people with the right mindset. And if you're not ready to start right now, at least spend time with these individuals, watch them do what they do, whether you shadow them, whether you just sit down and have a meeting with them and sort of talk about, the realities of their daily life and how their investments are going. But you need to put yourself in the right ecosystem. And that's the biggest challenge people have is they're trying to jump into something new from an old ecosystem. You need to jump into a new one. So make your way in, build that new network, surround yourself with the right people, and they're going to help lift you up to where you need to be in the right position to get going in whatever venture you're looking at, whether it's real estate or anything else.
Surround yourself accordingly, no doubt. Absolutely. Well, Jonathan, it has been an honor having you on here, sir. Being mindful of your time, of course. We can't thank you enough. We will be sharing this video on Millionaire Flicks, of course, and YouTube will share it with you as well. But all right, till next time, we thank you for coming on here.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right.